Cam Ward was on fire at Tennessee Titans training camp on Wednesday. I'll tell you what happened and look forward to joint practice against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on today's edition of Locked On Titans.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, on today's show, we are going to break down Cam Ward going on fire at Tennessee Titans training camp practice on Wednesday. Also, we're going to take a look ahead at what I have my eye on when the Tennessee Titans take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in joint practices on Thursday. Before we get into all of it, do want to thank you for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. Speaking of every day, shout out to my everydayers out there tuning in Monday through Friday. Couldn't do it without you guys. If you aren't an everydayer, now is the perfect time to become one. I'm going to be doing shows for the next 10 straight days. We have 2 preseason games. We have multiple joint practices. And as you can tell, I am going to be here breaking it all down with you all the time, every day. Get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Titans podcast. But with that being said, Cam Ward had maybe his best practice of training camp on Wednesday. And it's great because he's bouncing back from a bad weekend of football that we discussed on the show, but highlights multiple touchdown passes and red zone 7-on-7. Cam Ward leads a 2-minute drive down the field at the end of practice to score. Absolutely getting his rhythm, absolutely getting his timing. Fantastic. So I'm going to dive into that performance a little bit based on all the reports we're seeing out of camp. Also, we need to talk about that joint practice. I'm going to look at it from Cam Ward's perspective, talk about the offensive line, the defensive line, and Quandre Diggs is back, ladies and gentlemen. So much to discuss, but starting, of course, with Cam Ward, like we were saying, his best practice of camp, it appears. Play-by-play on 104.5 The Zone absolutely does a great job there breaking down practice. You see all the reports coming out pretty much across the board that Cam Ward was sharp. He was on time. He was in rhythm. This is the best timing practice of Cam Ward, getting the ball, getting it out of his hands. You also see the rave reviews about Cam Ward manipulating the pocket, and that's what I'm most excited about. And look, I'm over bashing Will Levis. Look, go get your surgery, get healthy, move on to your next opportunity. That's what I want for Levis. But the reality is, watching Levis last year navigate the pocket. Remember the old pocket presence drills on Madden where the little ball would fly at you and you had to avoid it? Levis would be terrible at that every single time based on what we saw from him in the pocket. And Cam Ward's natural feel and natural instincts to move around in the pocket and step up and find the creases and use the arm angles to get the ball out. That is what makes Cam Ward so special, and what makes me so excited to watch him play is he can have that natural feel. I hate to do the comparisons, but think about a guy like Joe Burrow. Burrow isn't an elite athlete like Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen or something like that, but his movement around the pocket and to watch him move and slither around, he's done it against the Titans. He's one of the best in the NFL at manipulating the pocket, and I think Cam Ward can have that type of movement and that type of feel. He's like Luke when he puts the blockers on and he can just feel the force. That's what Cam Ward can do with football. He is an absolute natural. To see that kind of start to pop up and to see him move in the pocket, step up, make a throw to Calvin Ridley over the middle of the field, back up, roll left, get out of the pocket, and complete a pass. Like, those are the type of things that make Cam Ward special, is his feel. So to see that sort of translate in these, we talked about how it was disappointing over the weekend because the Titans offense was at its worst in the call-it periods, in the simulation periods, the red zone period, the, hey, we're backing you up here, you're on this, let's go, run it like normal. Simulating plays, real scrimmages basically between the offense and the defense. The Titans offense played its worst. So the fact that Cam Ward went nuts today in a 2-minute drill and low red zone situations, that is fantastic. So in the low red zone, we're talking about 10 yards and in. Had touchdown passes to Alec Iomanor, the rookie, to Van Jefferson. Also, in the 2-minute drill, was able to complete passes to Chigakonkwo over the middle, to Chim Dike with 23 seconds left on the sideline, Calvin Ridley over the middle for 15 yards, and then a back shoulder fade to Tyler Lockett for the touchdown to cap it off. Like, 8 of 10 in the 2-minute drill. About less than 2 minutes left, obviously, in the 2-minute drill. The Titans were backed up on like their 35, their 30-yard line. The fact that Cam Ward played his absolute best in this kind of 2-minute drill at the end of practice after a bad second week of offense, to bounce back today and also put on display his ability to get the ball around to a bunch of different people, step up in clutch moments, move around the pocket, manipulate, get out, make plays, find guys, create extra advantages for the Titans. Like, literally, it was all there. And it was, I would imagine, his best practice so far. So the fact that Cam Ward got some rhythm today and started looking like what we expect coming off a disappointing weekend, that makes this even better. If it was just a good practice, then great, like the Saturday practice at Nissan Stadium. Pretty good practice for Cam Ward, although, again, offense didn't do its best in sort of these more simulated periods that are more like football. But now to have his best practice so far, after having the first 2 weeks of training camp to learn and progress and do all the things that we're talking about, that's what you absolutely love to hear. So great stuff from Cam Ward at Wednesday's practice. Pocket movement, timing, feel, rhythm, 2-minute drill, low red zone 7-on-7s, doesn't matter. He was electric, he was dynamic, and I got to be honest with you, the 104.5, the Zone in Nashville, their kind of play-by-play of the practice, it does make you feel somewhat like you're watching the game with some of it. It's an excellent experience if you're able to tune in at any point in time. But with that being said, I do want to look at Cam Ward as we move forward to joint practices. A great practice, obviously, but now we look at Tampa Bay and how Cam Ward is able to handle the pressure of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is really what I'm going to have my eye on. Tampa Bay blitzed the third most in the NFL last season, and while I don't think that they're going to be, blitzing nonstop over and over again and all of that, and obviously you can't hit Cam Ward during the practice. He's going to have the red jersey on. It's not going to be contact with quarterbacks on either side. That obviously changes it a little bit, but like the Titans defense runs a ton of pressure packages. They're going to bring a bunch of blitzes from different levels and different angles and different people. That's what Tampa Bay is going to do as well. Now, I was talking to Brad Hopkins, Titans legend, on the Titans Squad Show, and he thinks even in these joint practices, the ones may not get too much work. I'm skeptical of that. I think the ones will get a ton of work in this joint practice. I think that's what the joint practices are for, and then you spend the majority of the time giving the backups the reps in the actual game. But I still don't think that Tampa Bay is going to blitz as they normally would in a game, but I would imagine that Brian Callahan, when he picked Tampa Bay or when he made an agreement to do this with Tampa Bay, I'm sure he wants to see some of Todd Bowles' blitzes. I want to see Cam Ward handle some of these pressure packages from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, one of the most aggressive defensive schemes in the entire NFL. I want Cam to get a sense of that. It's like when the Titans had joint practices with the Minnesota Vikings a couple of years ago, and I was like, this is great because Brian Flores is going to bring the heat, and that's what I want the Tennessee Titans to be ready for. And if they're ready for the biggest pressure packages and the most aggressive defenses in the NFL, if they've experienced that before the season starts, then they should, in theory, be ready for teams who maybe don't bring as much pressure or maybe aren't that geared up for the aggressiveness. It's just, might as well do the toughest thing first. It's why you eat your vegetables the first thing on your plate. Then you can get to your meat and your potatoes and get to dessert. That's how I at least view it. Let's get the hardest thing out of the way first. Let's just go ahead and do it. So I like this philosophy with Tampa Bay, and I hope, if I'm wrong about this and it doesn't play out that way, I would be disappointed. But I hope that Cam Ward does experience some of that high pressure, some of those blitz packages, some of that crazy stuff from Tampa Bay in this joint practice. No, they're not going to do it in the preseason game. Of course not. But I hope Cam Ward does get to feel it in practice, even if he can't get hit, even if the bullets aren't fully live, because that's one of the things I'm most excited about Tampa Bay being the team that the Titans are having joint practices with. I'm excited that Tampa Bay is such a good football team. I'm very high on Tampa Bay, a playoff team. You know what I mean? Like, one of the most exciting things about this pair-up is the fact that Cam Ward is going to feel the heat from one of the hottest defenses in the NFL. And that's exciting to me. So I want to see how he handles that. It's one practice. Cam is going to play in the preseason game, Brian Callahan said. I'll talk more about that later in the week when we do our preview. But Cam Ward's not the only person I'm looking for in these joint practices. The Tennessee Titans offensive line is going to have a big test as well. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Look, summer sports are in full swing, whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the greens, or high-stakes soccer action. FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not just make it a little more thrilling with FanDuel? You can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburnt at the beach. Look, I've been using FanDuel for forever, ever since it became possible here in my home state. I've been using FanDuel. It's the best app with daily new promotions, fun ways to bet. It always feels fresh. I love a same-game parlay. If you're new to FanDuel, right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Titans fans, let's continue today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We broke down Cam Ward's performance at Tennessee Titans training camp on Wednesday. On fire, 2-minute drill, red zone 7-on-7. Cam Ward was lighting it up at practice, and that's the type of momentum that we need to build as we go into joint practices. I want to see Cam Ward against that pressure from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but the offensive line has to handle that pressure as well, and the defensive line has their hands full. Quandre Diggs is back with the Titans. I have so much to discuss on today's show. Stay locked in. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Titans podcast. But Cam Ward handling the pressure, he can't do it all alone. He needs his offensive line to do some of it as well. And with Cam Ward having a good practice on Wednesday, so did the offensive line. I saw multiple reports talking about the offensive line, talking about Dan Moore looking better this week than last week. J.C. Latham doing real well. I think it was Ramon Foster on 104.5 who called J.C. Latham the lockout king right now. Love hearing that. Peter Skoronski taking a jump. You love hearing that as well. So the Tennessee Titans holding up against their own defense's pressure in practice and doing a good job of giving Cam Ward pockets and giving Cam Ward that extra second to make plays and make things happen. That's what you want to hear from the offensive line as well. And that's why I have my offensive line, or my eye, on the offensive line going against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because the Buccaneers, like I said, blitzed the third most in the NFL last year. We know that Todd Bowles, their head coach, has been one of the most aggressive defensive play callers in the NFL for quite some time right now. And, you know, at the end of the day, the offensive line is going to be a big question mark for just how good Cam Ward and the Tennessee Titans are going to be. And I've talked about it. The offensive line deserves higher expectations this year. 2 first-round picks on that offensive line who aren't rookies anymore. Peter Skoronski in year 3, J.C. Latham in year 2, and now J.C. Latham, we're being told, is moving to a more natural position for him. Dan Moore was $20+ million per year, and you can get into the details of the contract and say the guaranteed money and where it fits within other tackles. It's not like he got a top-of-the-market offensive tackle deal. That's absolutely not the case, but at the end of the day, you've been a starter for 4 years in Pittsburgh. You get $20+ million a year on a 4-year contract. You're expected to be the franchise left tackle and come in and solidify that spot and give the Titans better than average play there. You know, you add that to the 2 first-round picks. You add that to Kevin Zeitler, a veteran player who's been one of the better guards in the NFL even at his advanced age. Yeah, the expectations for the Titans offensive line should be higher. They should be significantly better than the bottom quarter of the NFL groups, bottom 5 NFL groups we've seen over the last few years. That should absolutely be the case. That should be the expectation. And going up against one of the defensive fronts that presents some of the most problems for offenses around the NFL because of the pressure they bring, that's critical. You got Hassan Reddick in there, who's actually back involved with the team. This isn't the Hassan Reddick that totally skipped out on the New York Jets. Kalijah Kancey was a former first-round pick. We know Vita Vea. Vita Vea is one of the best interior defensive linemen in the NFL, and you can only hope that T'Vondre Sweat turns into a player like that, which T'Vondre Sweat came back to practice for his abdominal injury and then left during individual period. So, again, we got good news that he was going to practice, and then he went right back out Brian Callahan said before practice that he was good to go. He was supposed to play. The fact that he only did, stretch stuff and left an individual, probably not a good sign. Hopefully we get an update on that tomorrow in Tampa Bay. But Vita Vea, very good player, going to be very difficult for Peter Skoronski, for Kevin Zeitler, and Jackson Slater, because Blake Hance is still out, but Brian Callahan said he's getting better. Jackson Slater got some first-team reps today to manage Kevin Zeitler. Didn't sound like it went too well, to be honest with you, but nonetheless, Jackson Slater is going to get a test in there and is getting some opportunity. I just think it's a difficult front. Their linebackers blitz. Yaya Diaby out of Louisville. Always liked him. Chris Braswell, another guy who I liked coming out of college as well. All these guys who I liked as mid-round pass rushers, but they blitz their linebackers as well. It's just a ton of pressure coming at you. And how the Titans offensive line deals with it. Here's the thing, though. Tampa Bay is going to bring pressure, and they have a pretty good pass rush group and a good defensive line. But to me, it's not so great that the Titans' offensive line is off the hook. I want to see some wins. I want to see them handle that pressure. I want to see them give Cam Ward pockets. Like, this offensive line should be average or better than average. Those are the outcomes that are acceptable. Average or better than average. Those are the only acceptable outcomes for the offensive line, and I want to see it. And if they're getting better in practice, and you have a former NFL offensive lineman talking about the improvements the offensive lineman has made, then we need to see it. All right? I want to see it against Tampa Bay. So O-line and Cam Ward handling that pressure. Of course, I'm going to have my eye on the offense a little more closely than I would be paying attention to what we hear and the reports that we hear about the defense. All right? I think the defense will be solid. But looking at the defense, Tampa Bay's offense is incredible. Like, Tampa Bay's offense is loaded, man. Now, I know that Tristan Wirfs, their all-world, all-pro left tackle, is not going to be out there. All right, they're going to have Charlie Heck out there, who's one of their backups. They might have some sort of rotation. I'm not following the third-string offensive line of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers quite as well as I follow the Titans, if you know what I'm saying. But Charlie Heck has experience. He's going to come in and give him some opportunities. He's going to be all right at left tackle, but the Titans should win that more often than not. But Ben Bredesen, solid. Graham Barton at center is great. They brought in Jake Majors as well, who I like as a draft pick, as an undrafted free agent, as a backup center. There, Cody Mock, fantastic guard, and Luke Gadecki is one of the most underrated right tackles in the entire NFL. They have when you put Wirfs in there, that is one of the best offensive lines in the entire NFL. So it's not like they drop off entirely. They're going to drop off a little bit, no doubt, but I want to see how the Tennessee Titans pass rush can go up against this good offensive line. Now, you got that issue at left tackle, Charlie Heck. But if Charlie Heck isn't at left tackle and the Buccaneers' offensive line is whooping the Titans' pass rush, well, again, the pass rush is probably the thing that I'm most concerned about whatsoever. Like it's probably the thing that I'm most concerned about at all. So, anyways, outside of the offensive line, outside of Cam Ward, taking a look at the pressure, we got to look at the Titans' defensive backfield because Quandre Diggs is back, folks. Quandre Diggs is back. And the secondary has a very, very tough test against Tampa Bay. Today's episode is brought to you by Yahoo Fantasy. Look, it is the best time of the year. NFL kickoff is almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. This year, I'm probably going to be playing with you guys in the Locked On Titans Fantasy League on Yahoo Fantasy. And even if you're not in the league, you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making their millionth league. I've used Yahoo for years. They have perfected the fantasy football experience. They've been doing it for 28 years, and to celebrate those 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. To kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing with the season around the corner. Now is the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. Might be doing that for the Locked On Titans League, actually, but if you're more into the classics, that's fine. You could still play head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. Titans fans, let's cap off today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We talked about Cam Ward's great practice that he had. We talked about his expectations going into Tampa Bay. We talked about the O-line. We talked about the pass rush. Now I want to move into the secondary because Quandre Diggs is back. And not only is Quandre Diggs back, but the Titans secondary is going to need him against Tampa Bay, who has a great collection of wide receivers. Before we talk about it, though, and cap things off, I do want to thank you again for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. Remember, tomorrow I'm going to be going live here to break down everything that happened at joint practices. Friday, I'm going to have a game preview for the preseason game and who I'm looking for most on the depth chart. I'm going to be going live after the game on Saturday night to break everything down and then be right back here on Sunday night to begin the week of Locked On Titans right again with more preseason games and joint practices coming next week. So make sure that you stay locked in here with me. But for your second listen, check out Locked On Bets. You got betting experts Lee Sterling and Kevin Rogers. They got daily MLB locks. Can't miss football futures. Find Locked On Bets on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. But Quandre Diggs is back on a one-year deal with the Tennessee Titans. Cam Ward's cousin has returned. Remember, he played 8 games with the Titans last year before getting injured, and then he was out for the season. He's healthy now. He's ready to go. He said after practice that he's been healthy for quite some time now. He was just waiting for the right time to come back. So he joins the Titans. He adds to the safety depth. I think that this is a fantastic move for the Titans to add depth at safety. A guy who obviously does have a connection with Cam Ward. It'll make Cam Ward happy to have his cousin around. Quandre Diggs is good for the vibes. He knows the defense. He can teach it to a guy like Kevin Winston. But here's the thing. I saw a lot of people saying, oh, this means Kevin Winston's injury is really bad. This means Kevin Winston's injury is bad. No, it doesn't. And all of the reports that came out after the signing were saying this is not a signal that Kevin Winston is, they're managing him. And Kevin Winston didn't play in practice on Wednesday either. They're managing his injury and his soreness as he comes back from an ACL tear. I would imagine that you will see him out there in that joint practice against Tampa Bay. They rested him in this one, rested him in the last one. Now it's time for him to be in joint practices against Tampa Bay to get that good work that they need in those defensive packages where he might play early on. But now since you're managing that soreness with Kevin Winston, you add in Quandre Diggs. He's going to get snaps. He's going to be able to fill stuff. They got rid of a safety as well and brought in 2 new ones, so they're really churning that safety position. But again, I don't think that Quandre Diggs' addition means anything for Kevin Winston. I think Quandre Diggs is just a good player to have in the locker room and good depth at safety. Think about their top 4 safeties now. Amani Hooker, Xavier Woods, Kevin Winston, Quandre Diggs. You keep Mike Brown as a 5th safety. I think that is maybe the best position group on the team. Up there with the interior defensive line trio of Sweat, Simmons, and SJD. So, anyways, moving right along, Tampa Bay's wide receiver group. Oh, my. So we're not going to see Chris Godwin, but Mike Evans, Emeka Egbuka, Jalen McMillan, Trey Palmer, Tez Johnson, Sterling Shepard. I mean, my Lanta. They have a great wide receiver group. Not only good talent at the top, but also depth. The Titans' cornerback room is really going to be tested here, and it needs the test. The cornerback room is one I'm really worried about. We got some positive updates on L'Jarius Sneed. He was on a side field in a jersey working, so wasn't Cushenberry, and then Quandre Diggs went over with them, according to Teron Davenport, so you love hearing that. But they're not going to have Sneed in this joint practice. So it's going to be Darrell Baker. It's going to be Jarvis Brownlee Jr. It's going to be Roger McCreary as the starters. And then I want to see that second group. I want to see Gabe Judy Lawley. I want to see Jermari Harris. I want to see Marcus Harris, the Titans' 6th-round pick. Like, I want to see how the backup cornerbacks do to see if any of these guys are actually worthy of making the roster or if the Titans should be considering going out and getting a veteran. We talked about some veterans that would make sense earlier this week. So that's what I'm really paying attention to, how Cam Ward handles the pressure and the defense of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which is really tough, how the Titans' offensive line responds to that pressure from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense as well. Tampa Bay has a great offensive line. Can the Titans' pass rush be better than we expect, especially individually with Femi and Draymond Jones, Arden Key? Can't wait to hear how all of them are doing. And then, of course, like we just talked about, that Titans secondary and the young cornerback depth that hasn't been tested. How are they going to handle the great wide receiver group that Tampa Bay puts out there? And Baker Mayfield is back. He was dealing with a hand injury, but he's back in practice. Teddy Bridgewater got signed by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as well, so he's probably going to want to get reps and get comfortable and get back into it. Going to be very, very interesting. I'm very excited about the Titans versus the Bucs. The Bucs are a really good football team, and I think it's a good measuring stick of where the Tennessee Titans are at right now and what we can expect from them. If they go into Tampa Bay and they get absolutely rolled, then we know, hey, this team has not improved a lot. But if they hold their own against Tampa Bay, I think it'll be a good sign that the Titans will be much more competitive than they were last year. And obviously, the preseason game is after Thursday. I'm going to be previewing it Friday with a bonus episode. I'm going to be breaking it down with a bonus episode on Saturday. Make sure that you guys don't miss it. If you're watching on YouTube, throw a thumbs up on the video. Hit subscribe. We're almost to 17K. I want to get to 20K by the end of the season. Let's go, everybody. Hit subscribe, whether you're podcast, YouTube, doesn't matter. Thanks so much for tuning in. That's going to do it for me today, though, folks. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.